Welcome back, everyone, and welcome, Erika. Erika Merz is a friend of mine who is a dance teacher, an artist, an energy healer, and also a progressive activist who, among other things, has done diversity training. And what else would you like us to know about you, Erika, before we start?
Thanks, Alice. Thank you for having me, and hello to everyone out there listening. I'm so grateful to be here today and
I'm so
share
glad you're
about
here.
my work. Yeah, me too. This is going to be fun. Um, yeah, the central core of my work, Rise Up with Heart, is about spiritual empowerment. And I have a pretty extensive background in grassroots organizing, pretty radical grassroots organizing, specifically around prison abolition and police immigrant detention centers and immigration justice. And then my work, what I'm doing is kind of integrating those ideas and those visions, but then really honing in on the power of energy. I see everything as energy, and through energy and the existence of everything being energy, I'm passionate about how we can, as energy beings, tap into this kind of infinite source energy to help catalyze and create the change that we're all, working towards in our actions in the world. So I use energy work and dance and art. This is my painting behind me, and perhaps I'll show a few more images as well, using intention and visualization practices, things like guided meditation, that can really help us expand our spiritual tools. Really, they're tools and empowerment. And I'm sure everyone listening has a sense of how colonization over many generations and all over the world strategically targets the spiritual people, the cultural earth-based wisdoms, the medicines, the healers, because that's really where the power is. So a lot of my work is about reclaiming and remembering, from within us, that spiritual power that we have access to, and then using dance and art and coaching to support people with that.
Amazing. And I'm already amazed by like your hand gestures you're showing us like so much like this is happening. Yeah. Very dancing even when you're not dancing.
Mm.
Um, and so there's a few different worlds here that you deal in the art world, you deal in the spirituality and coaching world, you deal in the radical activist world. How do you see those all fitting together?
Yeah, I love this question because it's been my own process to really find how they all connect. And when I said, the core of my work is about spiritual empowerment and speaking about energy, that's really where it all comes together for me. My background in organizing, I spent, some many years out on the streets at all the, direct actions and all the protests and all going to all the meetings and part of many groups. And the work was really meaningful, but I felt this something missing of the
Mm,
energetic and spiritual, like a baseline of both knowledge and heart-centered alignment that was kind of missing for me. And so, then as I finally started valuing the importance of my art and the powerful states that I was dropping into with dance. I mean, if you told me some years ago that I was going to be teaching dance or doing dance as part of my work, I would like have laughed because it was my own personal practice. I don't know if folks might
mm,
have heard of ecstatic dance, but it's basically just free form movement. There isn't any specific kind of moves, or it's not a performance. It's like we don't speak on the dance floor, we're barefoot, and you can go into your own journey. So dance really developed as my own practice and then became such a powerful thing that I was like, I gotta share this with
nice.
people. So really the power of energy and the desire to use spiritual tools and wisdoms that I'm not inventing, right? Let's make sure we get that straight. This is very much, indigenous cultures all over the world and shamanic types of practitioners and different forms all over the world know about and have used all these kinds of tools. So I'm wanting to bring those spiritual tools, that spiritual empowerment, the power of energy and the mind, and how we can use that in the streets, on the ground, to create the physical changes in politics and global, the global chaos we're experiencing. So yeah, the power of energy, I would say, really ties that all together.
Brings everything together. Yeah, when you were talking about going to all the protests and all the meetings, that was me 20 years ago. And what I thought you were going to say is it's depleting, because that was my experience. In fact, I retired from activism in 2005. Turned out to only last about 6 years, but it was like, it felt at least as extractive as working in the capitalist system. And it doesn't need to, because it's coming from love. Right?
Mm. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because there was truth in that too, that it was tiring. And I would say, a lot of my activism, I literally lived with my parents and didn't have a job and was only doing activism for at least 3 years. And 3 years before that, and then some years after that, I was also working part-time. But yeah, it's draining. And also there's this culture of self-sacrifice that I feel can be really toxic, because it's like, oh, are you passionate enough about the movement? Well, then you don't get to do the fun things in your life. You have to give everything. And yeah, I've definitely, my spiritual journey has helped me very much reorient those ideas and beliefs around, how do we be the most expansive, embodied, aligned, and resourced as we can, so that when we show up to these movements, when we're engaged and involved, we actually have a lot to give. And obviously, I'm sure, and maybe you have other speakers talking about this, the importance of unlearning the internalized systems of oppression, the internalized white supremacy, internalized colonial mindset, because otherwise we're perpetuating those systems in our organizing to make change. So a lot of my work is also like examining, in the spiritual dance work that I'm doing, we're also talking about internalized systems of oppression that live within us, and how do we physically release, energetically release, and transform, so that we can rewrite, our internal our internal truth, our freedom. We can, practice actually, what does it mean to hold these different values of the new world, or, the future that we're all envisioning.
So becoming a clearing so that you can choose who to be and how to be.
Yeah, well, it's just part of part of the work to me in changing the world, and like what you're talking about is unlearning stuff and then relearning stuff. And then, yeah, the energetic and spiritual part is the relearning too. It's like, oh, we are powerful divine beings. That's what I work to remind people of often.
And how does, I mean, you've kind of talked about energy and power. How do you, it's almost like, what's the sequence? Like you said, energy ties together all these things, the art, the coaching, or the coaching / spirituality, and the activism. What do you put where, so that what can happen, if that makes sense?
Like, what's an evolution of someone's experience, maybe, who might be connecting with my work?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, all of it at once. Not to overwhelm anyone. It does all relate, and I do see it all going hand in hand. I think some things that I think is an important critique that people, say out there is like, we can't wait till we're healed in order to show up to the movement. And we can't just show up to the movement and like postpone our own healing either. And that's a big part of my story. When I was in the streets doing all the organizing for years, I was having a pretty major health issue going on. Still working with that health issue. And I was ignoring it because it was compared to the disasters of the injustices in the world. It was like, oh, my little problem is like not a big deal. And so it really does have to go together, the healing of ourselves, both physically and nourishing our own experience, which for me is dance. Dance is my primary spiritual, physical, creative, energetic, prayerful, meditative practice. So, I'll be in the streets and then go to dance and then avoid my own healing, so like it really does. And I was working
Sounds like my late 20s. Lots
yeah.
of activism, lots of square dancing, actually.
Oh, lovely.
Although I wasn't having health problems yet, so maybe
Mhm.
I was just lucky. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the unlearning of systems oppression, a big part of my organizing involved working with a group of self-identified white folks who are working to end racism. So we're doing a lot of deep unlearning and diving into what does it mean, what's the positionality and the role of white folks in spaces of organizing for for justice, which at the root of all the injustices, I think racism is really key there. So yeah, did I answer your question? So and
Did
then
some interesting, you said some interesting stuff. I'm gonna, so
go ahead.
how, so like how do you and how do the people you work with show up differently in your activism after like generating this energy and clearing out this, this muck
Hmm.
through physical and spiritual grounding?
Yeah. Mm. I love this question, and let's see what arises. I can say first for myself. I mean, I was already quite spiritual in my time doing a lot of organizing activism, and not that I'm not doing that anymore, but it's in a different way. Um, and in some ways, this one piece I'm thinking of is so simple, but it's actually really core to what I talk about and what I do, which is having faith in the spiritual existence of the world. To a certain extent, I know that probably you might relate, and a lot of people relate, is there's this feeling of there's so much wrong with the world and there's so much that needs to be done. And we can so easily feel like we have to carry this weight on our shoulders by ourselves. Right. And I know that's something you want to really lift up is like, we are not alone.
Mhm.
And I would add that we are not alone in the unseen realms. There are many, many, many energy beings, guides, animal, plant spirits, the elements of the earth, and ascended beings, angels. Like there's many different names for many different beings that are also helping us. And so I feel like for me, having a spiritual grounding in doing this easily hopeless feeling, heartbreaking kind of work is so important. And I still have to work on this. I still get uptight and feel like I have to, save and fix something, which is what, a mindset I'm trying to release. But, that's the practice of, okay, yes, we have action that we can take. Yes, we want to be involved and contribute to the change we want to see in the world. And there's a degree to where we also have to surrender and trust and use prayer and use energy. And some people don't like the word prayer, but you can use the word intention and
Mhm.
visualizations. So for myself, I know that my stress of the devastation and the projected direction of where the world is going, I don't sit in that pain. I really don't. And there's probably some degree where I'm, avoiding it or staying in a little bit of a bubble, but I really don't. There's a deep trust in the universe. And like you know, we, even the example of death, you know, it's like we think about death as like this bad thing or this wrong thing, and maybe not like it's bad entirely, but you know, untimely death or just injustices that cause death and pain, you know, it's like it's easy to see all of that in such a terrible way. But when you have that super deep belief that our spirit continues, you know, there's it changes the whole picture, you know, and the doomsday idea, like, okay, what if humanity completely disappears from the earth, you know, that would be terrible. That would be heartbreaking. And it's not like the end of everything in my mind,
Yeah.
because I have that spiritual grounding. And you know, and I could go off on whole like many examples of how and why and the proof and you know my own experiences with the spiritual and you know different dimensions. But yeah, I would say I'll say one more piece. So that yeah, that having that spiritual faith and really believing it is a powerful
It
thing.
sounds
And
like it gives you a lot of resilience.
yes, I mean, I've never had a tendency towards depression, but it does. I wake up feeling great, you know, every day, and I tap into spirit. It doesn't mean I don't have my challenges and that, you know, that like my life is wonderful in all the ways. Definitely not the case, but um, yeah, I think, and then it also becomes a tool. So you ask like, what's the change? You know, when I'm out in the streets now, or when I'm, you know, connecting to a certain movement in a certain part of the world, I I still feel helpless sometimes, but I also have something I can do, you
Mm.
know, and that I think can be so heartbreaking for us personally as, you know, people who care so deeply about seeing, you know, much needed change in the world is like, what can I even do or what, you know, and when you go so deep in the power and use of energy work and you know how powerful it can be. And with the dance that I do, I mean, for me, the dance is like the ultimate tool to tap into, you know, these other dimensions and the power of energy. I believe in that and that can bring change on an energetic level. And so it gives me another way to support or be tapped in and calling in that energetic support for the movements that we do. And then I'll just say one last thing. Of one client of mine, he's wonderful, and he's an older man and also a radical activist. And actually, that's how we originally met, through organizing. And he was in this internal dilemma of, how do I, like, this is, I love dancing and I want to just go out and dance in public and radiate my joy and happiness, but I feel like I need to be always working to, you know, towards climate, you know, chaos, towards, you know, changing the world, feeling that, you know, internal conflict.
Yep.
And through the work that we did together, he was part of a longer deep dive program that I did, and also like in just a beautiful one-on-one session that I'm reflecting on. All these ideas have been shifting in him and coming together and integrating, and he came to a place where he could understand that that his joy and his dancing and his expression was energetically helping the world in the direction that he wanted. And of course, he's still doing activism stuff, but actually, here's a good moment where I can show this art piece is like being, and this has been a big part of my personal evolution in activism, is like, oh, actually there's a place for joy, you know, and pleasure activism and all that. I definitely recommend people check out a lot of those other resources, but there's a place for being, for feeling love and for feeling joy and like making the movement fun. Like my ultimate vision is teaching this kind of dance, like energetic empowered dance practice, so that we can all dance in the street and wield this energy for the change we want to see,
Oh my
you
goodness.
know. And so if we're all being like this and holding this field of powerful heart-centered energy while we're marching, while we're, you know, it's yeah, it changed his life to realize, oh, I don't have to feel guilty or bad about doing fun things or expressing my joy or being creative. It's actually all energetically connected and helping the change we want to see.
Well, that makes me think of two stories, but I'm going to tell you the second one. So when I was in the Occupy Wall Street movement, we had a national gathering in Philadelphia, and the police were very, very aggressive. And at one point, there was a rally, and the police surrounded a group of occupiers, and I think the occupiers surrounded more occupiers surrounded the police or something. Whatever happened, it got very, very tense, and people started holding hands and humming Om, and the
Mm.
police left.
Mm. Yeah. It for real, it's powerful. I mean, song and dance and prayer has always been a part of movement, big movements for justice and for change. And I think as such a, hyper westernized culture, we've forgotten that. I'm
Mhm.
connected to some groups who do singing in the streets, and it's amazing. It's so powerful. Like an action recently, we were shutting down this bank and blocking off this whole street, and it was like a die-in, and so everyone was like laying on the floor in a way that spelled out certain words so the drone
Oh
could
wow.
like get the specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were singing, and the songs are like medicine songs that help us too, right? It's not just to,
Well,
energetically
that's what I mean. That's what
go.
people, the person who told me about this said, I was scared, so I started grabbing people's hands and humming Om.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing it for her own comfort, and yet it disarmed, not physically disarmed, but it
Mm-hmm.
took the anger and competitiveness out of the consciousness of the police, and it was so powerful they couldn't be there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Two things that you're making me want to mention. Um, what are they? One is I want to lift up the incredible way that Indigenous people, not to generalize all Indigenous people, but in my activism, I started shifting more towards Indigenous-led organizing in sort of my, last chunk of activism. Because of that energetic, spiritual, prayerful grounding, like Indigenous people generally bring that love, bring that wisdom, bring that groundedness, and that, like, that's it's so it has a huge impact, like you were just speaking to, with the simplicity of some sound and vibration. You add the drumming, you add, these chanting, it's powerful. um and what was that thing I was gonna say? It's slipping my mind.
Okay. We just have a couple more minutes, so why don't you tell us about your free gift offer? You're offering two gifts, so tell us about them both.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, I want to share some of these tools and also some of these visual imagery with everyone here listening. I'm an artist, and I'll take this moment to share a few other pieces actually. I'm an artist, and like we talked about, I help make energy visible and through art, and then it becomes a visual aid that we can use in meditation, in visualization practices, to build that resiliency and help us remember and reconnect. I mean, we're always connected, but strengthen that connection with divine source energy. So this is a painting in the form of a little sticker. That, the intention is that you put yourself in the middle. You put yourself in the middle, you create the sphere of, visualize the sphere of protection around you, this columns of energy connecting you to above and to below, to all the beings, the cosmic support beings, and like, visualize the blessings and the love raining down on us. Like, so talk about ways that we can build that resiliency. If you do this kind of thing before you're out, in the streets or at this meeting, or feeling that, the intensity of what's happening in the world, that can be powerful. And I consider my art to be spiritually activating,
Mm.
because you see it and then you can energetically embody it and tap into that field of energy around you. And I'm sharing this now because it's going to help people understand the free gift. um,
Okay.
so this is another example of how I talk about, this column of light, right, that moves through our central channel of our bodies. And, energy work practices, people all over the world have known about the power of hands-on healing. Through our hands, we can create energy and we can use and wield that energy. So this is an image of a prayer for the earth. This is a direct experience that I had and have many times, where it's like we can literally hold the earth in prayer, and I definitely am not saying to do this instead of action. And I think that's really important. Actually, yeah, a lot of people talk about prayer is action
As
and
action.
as action. Yeah. So the free gift I have is the two-part. One is a free download of this image. So you can put it on your desktop, you can have it on your phone, you can print it out and put it in your home. I obviously do sell prints of various sizes. This is a tapestry back here, but the idea is that when you see this, it helps you tap in, it helps you find the heart. It helps, this image specifically is about how powerful it is to be in a heart-centered space and to be connected with that, divine intuitive sensing, and then the roots, of course, and the power of love that we can harness as we're rising up radiant and rooted, to make the change in the world. So a free download of this, as well as a 2-page PDF worksheet, which speaks to a lot of the specific tools and movements and practices that I use when I teach dance. I'll just say, I didn't quite say this fully, but when I dance, I go into a trance state. I tap into energy fields and expansive trance states, which people can think of as a way where our our logic mind, or our human, our like physical reality human experience expands energetically infinitely into the cosmos. And so that's what I'm really passionate about teaching through dance. And I have a lot of different offerings. So if people are connected in or interested in connecting to do, experience or try these kind of dance things, I have YouTube videos out there, as well as like real life guided deep dive dance ceremonies that I offer. But this worksheet that you can get free as a download shows kind of a whole lineup of the basic concepts and tools that I talk about in those kind of workshops. So if you're completely new to all these ideas, it might be a little hard to connect with that handout, but it has a lot of tools, even if just the power of dance, and the power of shaking, and the power of, tuning into that inner alignment. All those things could be really helpful for folks listening to find that centering, find that grounding, find that inner peace and state of love that can allow us then to show up that much more strongly in our empowerment to the world and to the work that we're doing. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Erica. I think that's it. And it's been wonderful to be with you.
It's been so wonderful, Alice. Thank you so much. What a joy and honor to be here and have this awesome conversation.
Thank you.